In this video, I'm going to do some more examples on factoring by grouping. In particular, these examples have a greatest common factor for the entire polynomial that has to be factored out first. In any factoring problem, the very first step is always to check for a greatest common factor for the polynomial. And that would mean that all four of these terms have something in common that we could factor out. And this polynomial, in fact, does have a greatest common factor for all four terms. If you notice, we have 16, 40, 12, and 30. I know those are all even numbers, so I know I at least need to be able to factor out a 2 from all of those. And I do think that is the biggest number I can factor out. 4 goes into these three, but 4 will not go into 30. So I think 2 is going to be my greatest common factor for my number portion. And then they also all have a w that can be factored out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out a greatest common factor of 2w for the entire polynomial. That's going to leave me with 8w to the third power minus 20w squared minus 6w plus 15. Alright, now that I've done that step, now I can group what I have left. Now this 2w is part of my answer, so I'm just going to leave him out here for now, put him on hold. He is going to be part of the answer, but right now we're done with him. Alright, I'm going to group the first two and the last two in the polynomial here, and I'm going to now look for a greatest common factor for just these first two terms. Alright, 8 and 20, I know 4 will go into both of those. I also am able to take a w squared out of both of those. That's going to leave me with 2w minus 5. Now this is just for this first group. On my second group, I have a 6 and a 15. Those are both divisible by 3. So I'm going to factor out a 3. But because this is negative, I'm going to factor out a negative 3. We talked about that in the last video. Anytime the first term is negative, we want to factor out a negative with our greatest common factor. That's going to leave me with 2w minus 5. Again, when you divide a positive 15 by negative 3, that's going to leave negative 5. And it's a good thing it did because we want these to match. Now I can factor out the 2w minus 5, and I'm left with 4w squared minus 3. But I cannot forget that this 2w here needs to come down, and it is part of our answer as well. I didn't bring it down on this line because sometimes bringing it down gets people confused. It gets mixed up in all this. And so I just kind of put him on hold, and then I try to remember to make sure to bring him down when I write my final answer. So this line here is my final answer. If I wanted to, I could multiply these together, then multiply them all by 2w, and I should end up with what I started with. So you can certainly check that if you want to. Alright, let's try another one. 15x to the fourth plus 15x squared y squared plus 10x cubed y plus 10xy cubed. Okay. Now, when you see that there's 4 terms, a lot of times we jump the gun and we kind of try to go ahead and group, but we don't want to do that until we have checked for a greatest common factor for all 4 terms. Because if we have a greatest common factor for all 4 terms, we want to factor that out first, like we did here with the 2w. So when I look at all 4 terms, I see my number part, 15, 15, 10, 10. I know that I can at least take a 5 out of everything. Now I'm going to check for the variable portion and see if they have anything in common. I have x to the fourth, x squared, x cubed, and an x. So the most I'll be able to take out is an x because that's what this one has, and it's the lowest. Y's I cannot take out because this one doesn't have any y's, and they would all have to have y's in order for me to be able to factor out a y. So 5x is going to be my greatest common factor. I'm going to factor that out, which is going to leave me with 3x cubed plus 3xy squared plus 2x squared y plus 2y cubed. All right, now that I've done that, now I can group. So I'm going to look at just this first group, just this pair, and look for the greatest common factor of those. Now remember, 5x is going to be part of my answer, but I'm putting him on hold for just a minute. Okay, just leave him out there and don't forget about him at the end. Out of this first group, I'm going to take a 3 out and also an x out. So 3x is my greatest common factor, which will leave me with x squared plus y squared. Out of my second group, it looks like I can take a positive 2 as well as a y because they both have y's. All right, that's going to leave me with x squared plus y squared. All right, so you see I have that binomial in common. I'm going to factor out the x squared plus y squared, which will leave me with 3x plus 2y. And I'm going to bring down that 5x that I factored out to begin with as part of my answer.